Hi, today we'll break down the IELTS scoring system. First, we'll explain how the four individual IELTS sections are scored. Then, we'll discuss some of the differences between the scoring processes for the IELTS academic version and the general training version. While the listening and speaking sections are the same and scored in exactly the same way for both the academic and general training versions, the reading and writing sections have some important differences. The reading and writing sections on the academic IELTS are more complex and use a different grading rubric. For both the academic and general versions, your final score for each section will be rounded to the closest half or whole number. The scoring runs from 0 through 9 and is called a band score. Band 9 is the best score and band 0 is the worst. Then, those four section scores are averaged together to calculate your overall final score. Here are the official IELTS descriptions for what's needed to achieve band scores of 9 through 5. As you can see, a band 9 indicates an expert level of English. To score a 9, you must demonstrate a fully operational command of your language. Your English must be appropriate, accurate, and fluent, and you must show complete understanding. If you occasionally have minor inaccuracies and misunderstandings, but can communicate using a wide range of vocabulary with complex language, then you can probably score an 8 or a 7. But if you have mistakes and misunderstandings that are more frequent, and if you're struggling with using complex language, then your score will drop to a 6 or even a 5. Bigger problems in your understanding and a total inability to use complex language will drop you to a band 4 or even lower. As we mentioned, your final overall score will be rounded to the nearest half band or whole band. For each of the individual sections, the score will be rounded down, but your final overall score, averaging together all four sections, will be rounded up. Here's an example of how the score is rounded. In the reading section, an 8.75 would be rounded down to an 8.5 as your final score for that section. On the other hand, an unrounded overall score of 8.75 would be rounded up to a 9 as your final overall IELTS score. Okay, let's now dive into the scoring process for each of the four sections. The academic and general version of the listening and speaking sections have similar levels of difficulty and are graded in the same way. The following description of the listening section applies for both the academic and general versions. The listening section is broken down into four parts. For each of those four parts, you will listen to a recording and then answer 10 questions. So, there is a total of 40 questions for the listening section. Each correct answer is worth 1 point, so 40 points is the maximum you can receive. You won't lose points for making a wrong answer. That means it's worth trying to answer every question, even if you have to guess. Your raw score out of 40 will then be converted to a score on the 0 through 9 band scale. This graph shows the raw listening score needed for each band, down to a band 5. You can see that you must get 39 out of 40 questions correct to score a band 9. Let's now move on to the next individual section, reading. Unlike the speaking and listening section, the reading section is not the same for the academic and general training versions of the exam. For the academic version, each of the three subsections has one reading passage and then 12 to 14 questions. For the general training version, the first and second subsections consist of multiple short, simple texts. In the third subsection, you get one longer passage. The general training version has 14 questions for the first subsection. Then, on the second and the third subsections, there are 13 questions each. Now let's move on to their similarities. Both versions have 40 questions that are each worth 1 point, with a maximum of 40 points for the raw score. Again, you aren't penalized for getting a question wrong, so make sure to answer all of them. On both the academic and the general training versions of the exam, the 40 reading questions are made up of different types of questions, not just multiple choice. Here is a list of the types of questions that may appear on the reading section. Keep in mind that each question is still worth just 1 point, no matter what type of question it is. As you can see, the number of questions you must get correct to reach a band level is different for each version of the exam. Now, let's move on to the writing section. For both the academic and general training versions of the writing section, you will have 2 tasks. For each task, you will be given a prompt and then you'll write a response. The task 1 response is worth 1/3 of the writing section score. The task 2 response is worth the other 2/3. For the first task, the academic and general training versions have different prompts but are evaluated with similar grading rubrics. Students will need to judge whether they should write either a formal, semi-formal, or informal letter based on the prompt. In the academic version, students need to write a report on a chart or table, such as a bar chart, pie chart, or line graph. What's important to know for scoring is that both rubrics have 4 categories. They are graded on the band scale 0 through 9, and each category is worth 25% of your total task 1 score. For the second task, the academic version will sometimes have a slightly more complex prompt compared to the general training version. The academic and general version of the second task are graded with the same rubric. The Task 2 rubric is almost the same as the Task 1 rubric. The only difference is that the first category on the Task 1 rubric is task achievement, and for Task 2, it's task response. The other 3 categories are exactly the same on both rubrics. The key takeaway from the task response and the task achievement is to address all aspects of the prompt. Let's take a look at how your average score is calculated. Let's pretend for the second writing task you scored a 9 in 3 of the categories and then an 8 in the 4th category. The unrounded average of those first scores would be an 8.75, which is rounded down to an 8.5 as your final task 2 score. Your writing task 1 score is calculated in exactly the same way, but the task 1 rubric would be used instead. An unrounded writing task score that falls halfway between a half band and a whole band is rounded down. That means the only way to score a 9 on the first or second writing task is to get 9s in all 4 of the task grading categories. Remember, task 1 is worth 1/3 of your score and task 2 is worth 2/3. Since task 2 is worth more points, work on it first. Now let's move on to the speaking section. The speaking section is exactly the same for both the academic and general training versions. For the speaking section, you will converse with an examiner who will evaluate your performance. The section takes between 11 and 14 minutes and consists of 3 parts. The first part will take between 4 and 5 minutes, the second part will take between 3 and 4 minutes, and the third part will take between 4 and 5 minutes. The examiner will score your overall performance on those 3 parts with this rubric. If you want to learn more about how to improve your IELTS speaking score, we will have a 5-part mini-series on the topic. See the description box down below and click here on the top right-hand corner. Just like the rubrics for the writing tasks, you'll be given a band number for each of the 4 rubric categories. Then those 4 band numbers will be averaged together to calculate your score for the section. Your unrounded speaking score will be rounded to the nearest half or whole band. If the unrounded score falls exactly halfway between a half and a whole band, it will be rounded down. For instance, if you get an 8 in 3 categories and then a 7 in the 4th category, that would lead to have an average score of a 7.75, which would then be rounded down to a final speaking score of 7.5. But remember, your overall score, averaging all 4 IELTS sections together, that is listening, reading, writing, and speaking, will be rounded up. So a final average score of 8.75 in all 4 sections will be rounded to a 9. With that, We've finished our brief description on how the scoring process works for the IELTS. We hope that this video has improved your understanding of how the IELTS works, and we wish you success with achieving a great BAM score. I hope you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed watching it, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell and share with your friends. Keep practicing, and good luck with your English exam.